Hey guys, what's up? We have Tyler Pate with us. He's an illustrator, graphic designer, and the founder of Creative Pain. So say a big hi to him. So guys, we
How's it going,
we have
everyone?
yeah, and so guys, just a small technical check. If you can see me, you can hear me and see me both. So do you mind just putting a hi on the chat box so we can just be sure that everyone can hear us and see us properly? So Kendra, can you hear us? I guess. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Ghazal. And yeah. So now we can move forward. And guys, in this AMA, he will help the creatives like you to find out what their specialty is. So stay put and find out what is your core skill. And guys, I'm Siddhan from Print Shop, which is world's fastest growing creative demand marketplace, which allows artists to showcase and sell their work on more than 50 products without fear about hassles of delivery and customer service, which are taken care of by us. And that is not even the best part. The best part is that the artists can actually set their own commission range with no caps whatsoever. So, to know more about the print shop, why don't we have a small show reel? So, Tyler, do you mind? Let's have a small show reel. I'll just walk you through. So guys, so Tyler is here in the chat box as well. So in this webinar, we'll be focusing on that how to find your specialty. Now, let's say if you are a designer who has a multiple, you have, multifaceted tastes that you are an artist as well, you are an illustrator as well, you are a poster designer as well, but you are confused at what is your core strength. So in this scenarios of a man, Tyler will help you out. So Tyler,
Awesome.
first things first. How does it feel to be a part of Design Hill once again? Because he has been a regular person in terms of webinar and AMA, and he has been a part of WTF20 as well, one of the world's biggest conference for artists. So Tyler, how does it feel to be here? And yeah, you can take over now.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I think it's a fun experience where I'm able to really engage with all of you and new people that I haven't normally had the opportunity to talk to. And I love design, illustrating, and just the creative process. And I think I'm able to gain the most from that by hearing from all of you and other designers, and creating just a collaborative atmosphere for that. And I think you guys are big support for that.
So Tyler, when we talk about that designer is actually unsure that what is her specialty is. So is it because that he is good in everything he tries, or he tries many things and he wants to be good at one? So what is the root cause of this confusion that where he's actually good at?
I think a lot of times people confuse, what you want with what you're good at. Necessarily, it could be either or. I have always been somewhat well-rounded in graphic design in general. So that's, creating logos. I've always had fascination for that, or creating brands. But I developed a more keen interest to illustrating and creating posters and storytelling, and what the true meaning behind art is. And I actively pursued that more. I would have my balance of graphic design, but every chance I got free moments, I would just jump to illustrating and trying to get better at that. And eventually that starts to rise in skill set. And I would only suggest that if you have something that you're really good at and that's your core, don't stop doing that, because you have to keep honing in and sharpening those tools. But you have to find a little more time to do what you do love. And I think once you find that, you'll realize how easy it is to create a career for yourself and really pursue exactly what you want.
I guess so. So that question actually answers the very first question that we have on our question tab by Kamran Baba. that why did you choose graphic design as a career? So I guess that's so basically you need for storytelling, I guess. A creative person wants to tell stories by his art, so that's the reason.
Mhm.
And so now we have a question by Alma Deezer. So sorry, I'm getting your name wrong, Alma. So she wants to know that does one have to have a signature style, or is it okay to have variety?
uh, Again, it's kind of your own opinion on that. I feel like it's really nice to have diversity. For instance, if you're a graphic designer working for an ad agency or some sort of design firm, it's good to have flexibility. You've got to be able to pivot your style. You got to be able to really define what you're doing for the client that needs help. And that means changing up a little bit. But if you're a freelance designer or a freelance illustrator, it's good to have a unique style, setting yourself apart from all the other competition, because people are going to come to you wanting your style. So I would think the best advice I can give you is to dial back what you're doing and really cast the net on where you want to go. Do you want to go into the ad agency? Do you want to go in full-time freelance? Do you want to be an illustrated artist? Once you pick one of those directions, then I think you should either hone in on what you're doing and really, flourish in your own style, or be well-rounded so you can get more opportunities.
So that's something amazing actually. So basically, what you have to do, pick up one skill which you're actually good at, and just keep practicing it, keep dwelling on it. So then when you can have
Mhm.
a very strong
Mhm.
sense of style and sense of command that you own something as an art. Then of course you can expand.
Yeah, yeah, and you got to also realize that all these little things, as a graphic designer or an artist, they build upon each other. So you might be a really good artist or an illustrator. Well, have you thought about using those skill sets towards icon design or logo? Those things can kind of go hand in hand. So you have to kind of keep everything sharpening and in the right direction. And I think that's the key to it. They all build upon each other.
Yeah. So that's that, and we will just quickly move to next question, but by Liz. So he or wants to know that what are your passion projects and how do you choose them?
Hmm. One of my biggest passion projects is a project called the Creative Pain. And that's kind of where, engagements like what we're doing right here happen. It's, communicating to a larger audience of creatives who struggle with the creative process, who are wondering, how do you break through? The Creative Pain helps embrace that moment and, encourage that unfamiliar, territory, because I think from breaking through that, you're able to grow as a designer and artist and understand it's okay not to know how to finish this, or not have that great idea. It just takes work in honing it. And from those creative projects, I've been able to create cool things like this around the brand, and even things like a creative meltdown, which is, this is a candle. I mean, things like this, it doesn't all have to be graphic design on a computer. And those passion projects that I've developed allow me to get off the computer and create environments and create just an experience.
So fundamentally, what you're trying to suggest is that one should not stop creating, and secondly, we should
Hmm.
all be actually risk friendly. We
Yeah,
cannot be risk averse if we are in creative field. We need to, just take the leap of faith sometime and find out
yeah,
at what we are actually good at.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You never know. I mean, you might find something new if you're just, taking a shot, like you said. We can't really plan everything ahead.
So guys, take this with you. Do not be a risk averse person. Always be a little flexible when it comes to taking risks. And you never
Yeah,
know when can a leap of faith can teach you to fly.
yeah.
So yeah. So next question is by Enamul Lane. So he wants to know that how do you fix your charges as a graphic designer? Oh, that's a trade
Uh,
secret actually.
how do I what?
How do you fix your charges as a graphic designer? Basically, how do you charge your clients?
Oh, how do I charge them? I think there's a range of factors. I think every project needs to be addressed in its own realm. If you have someone coming to you for, let's say, a logo, you're going to charge for a logo completely different than you would an illustration, or than you would some marketing materials or print materials, because they're just so different in the thought process. I feel like logos, a lot of times I will kind of make that an all-in-one payment, and just this is how much it's going to cost, and then I'll divide that payment up across the whole project. So I create milestones. I think that's the most important thing about creating payment for your work, is create milestones for the client, because a lot of times clients get very distraught whenever they see that final sticker price, and they don't understand why it is what it is. But if you break it up into individual pieces, you're able to then say, well, this first milestone is 14 hours. The second milestone is 36 hours. And then they're starting to really understand, like, oh, there is a lot of time that goes into these, materials, whether that's logo design or, creating banner ads, anything like that. You just have to really be mindful of your time. You might could create a great logo in 2 hours, but do you charge 2 hours for that logo? That's just not how it works. You charge for a logo process. And if you get there quicker than most, that's where you're able to really sit back and say, all right, I'm experienced now.
So basically, there is always a conflict between a client and a designer. That how does actually the process works actually? Because sometimes the client see that you only took like half an hour to design a logo, or half an hour, or even 1 hour to design a creative. But seldom we can reckon the fact that it took someone like tens of years, even a decade or so, to design a logo in half an
Yeah.
hour. So you charge for
Yeah.
that 10 years of learning, the 10 years of grind. So that comes into
Yeah.
picture actually when you charge for something. That
It
doesn't come
should
easy.
every time. And like I said, I think the biggest misconception there is, oh, this logo or this project came very easy this time. But I guarantee you're going to have the next project or the project after that that's probably going to stump you. And you're going to sit there racking your head around it, like this is taking 4 times the amount of time than that other logo did. And that's just the creative process. That's just the fact that every project that you do, it's a new set of parameters. It's a new set of things that you didn't account for. So allowing yourself to have that flexibility in your payment plan or in your client to freelancing, it's important to define that it changes and give yourself some leverage to where if it changes, you're not wasting so much time and not getting paid for it. That's the biggest thing.
Exactly. You should actually know what your value is, and then you should be like very, very skilled enough to translate that your skill set into monetary value. So your skills
Yeah,
are in line with the numbers.
exactly. I would say this is one really good piece of fact that I've had, where every project that you do, especially for beginners, every project that you do, increase what you're charging every single project. And I'm not saying increase it by, hundreds and thousands of dollars, but increment like just a little bit every time. And what you'll eventually get to is a point where you're paying what you should be paying for what you're doing. So just
Exactly.
gradually get into it.
So guys, respect your work, and of course, marginal increments come into play. So always try to price your work accordingly. So we will just quickly glance through a question by Christiel, because you've answered the question already. How did you find your unique illustration style? So if you can just
Well,
let's
yeah,
go down
yeah,
this question very quickly.
yeah. I think I am a really, really, really fascinated in just distress and textures and just small details. And I think from that interest in creating those things, I've just refined it more and more and more to where I think my style is probably that distressed look that you see in a lot of the creative paint illustrations that I do. So every time I do a new project, I'm just trying to put more into it and create it more dimensionally. And that's just a building process.
Yeah. And so now next we have a very much upvoted question by Kamran once again. What qualities and skills should a great graphic designer have or should
Uh,
have? Yeah.
yeah, I think there's really only 2 things I think I could probably boil it down to. You have to be persistent. You have to not just give up. You're going to have to be in a mindset where you're not going to see failure as really an option. You've got to put the hours in. If it means you staying up all night, put the hours in and never give up on it. Persistence is everything. Always putting in everything that you can do with every piece that you're making. The other thing is problem solving. You have to enjoy the puzzle. every project that I usually work on, I see it as a couple different puzzle pieces, and I'm just sitting there trying to piece it together, trying to fit what I'm trying to do. And for instance, for a logo project, let's say if it's, a fitness gym who's also, located in a certain region, and also their competitors are A, B, and C. How do all these pieces fit together? It's like a Venn diagram, and you got to really find what's in between to make it what it is.
By Katie actually, and the question of Katie and Ellery actually on the same line. So I'll just try to club them together.
Mm-hmm.
So they both are young graduates, and they're struggling with first thing finding a job,
Mm-hmm.
and the second thing is finding out that what do they want and what do they want and what they should actually pursue. So once again, right in the lines of the AMA session itself, that what this session is actually aimed at, on the same
Uh,
lines.
I think I got that question. So a recent graduate, and what do you do then? How do you define your career path? Um,
Exactly.
it's a mental game. It's, you have to be strong during that period of time, because you're going to have a bunch of insecurities and doubt, more than likely, and your work isn't going to really be where it needs to be to promote yourself to these companies that you might want to go to. The best advice I can give you is create projects. Like, you always have to be creating something, because every moment that you're making something, that's another thing that could be seen by an art director, a creative director, or a brand. If they can see some of your work, then that's going to give them more, obligation to approach you, more reason to work with you. So the more that you're creating, even when you don't have a job, even if you're not really full-time designer, always create something, make up something. A lot of my illustrations are just things that I make up because I think it's fun. I enjoy that process. So if you can find a way to enjoy that process to where you're creating and you're like a powerhouse of design and creation, you're gonna find yourself in a fun position where this is coming naturally. This is what I would do if I was getting paid or if I wasn't. And that is what makes that time of in between not having a job enjoyable.
So, so yeah, and now we have a couple of more questions from Kamran. So actually, they form a part of the same question once again. So Kamran is actually very interested in the webinar. So how do you respond when a clients give you a harsh criticism? And secondly, how would you describe your design research?
Well, if you are working with a client, there's one thing to always remember: they're paying you to do work for them. So you need to really walk that line pretty fine, because you don't need to be a prima donna and say that this is what it is and this is how it needs to be. I don't go about it that way. I know some people can be successful from doing that, but I think you should work with the client. Make the client feel like they're involved in what you're making. It's a teamwork effort. So if a client comes back to you and say, I don't like any of these concepts, or I don't like the colors, or I don't get it, go back to that design brief, go back to the information and the notes that you wrote down from the initial meeting, and reiterate what they said, because you're only going off of what they've given you. And if they haven't given you enough information to create what they want, then you need to go back to that first step and you need to do it again, because they should be helping you create something. It shouldn't be the other way around, especially for logos.
So Kamran, that answers it really well. So whenever you have a conflict or whenever you are, let's say, criticized harshly,
Mm-hmm.
so what you can do is you can always go back to the very first principles of design,
Mm-hmm.
go to the brief, think on it, maybe sleep over it, and then maybe
Mm-hmm.
talk to a client and get going with the design again. Because sometimes you
Yeah.
need to be, it's the process by nature is symbiotic. It's not very exclusive by nature.
Yeah,
Both
I
work
would say
together.
exactly. I would say that every like initial kickoff where I'm showing my first results or my first design, it almost never gets picked. That's just how it goes, because that's me trying to just get us forward. And what that helps with is that's a conversation piece. That's a moment where I'm able to put my ideas to paper and show them, and then hear their response. Like, they're going to have very, opinionated responses from it. So I need to hear that. I need to understand what they like, what they don't like, what really resonates with them, because that information I'm taking back. And then round two, I'm going in there with the punching gloves, and I'm really showing them exactly what they asked for. And I'm able to put my artistic taste on it and my, design expertise to it.
So I guess so now we hope that all our audience will not really have very harsh conflicts with clients now. So so next question is by Taiwo. So and Ornella will take a question next because Taiwo is little high voted question actually, highly upvoted. So what makes a graphics design portfolio stand out?
Man, this is a tough one. I still struggle with this. So just to give you some, idea of how that works in your career, it's always ongoing. It is very hard to get noticed, no matter the level you're at. I mean, the thing is, you have to have work that is smart, that is well done, it's highly crafted, and it's fully thought through. You have to think about why you're doing it, what you solved, and what were the results. If you can show that in a portfolio, any and everybody who goes to that site is going to see what you were doing, how you conquered it, and then what were the feedback and results from it. So telling that story and creating your work in a way or a manner that shows that and is educational, because your portfolio should be educational for everyone who views it. It shouldn't just be, and I struggle with this again, it shouldn't just be a lookbook of really nice looking design, because I can see so much, are so many beautiful pieces of design, but I don't understand the meaning behind it. So trying to explain your work the best way you can. And if you could do that in a creative manner, I think you'll win.
So I guess Taiwo, now you should actually make a portfolio by keeping in mind that your portfolio actually speaks for you. It's just not a collection of
Mm-hmm.
designs or colors. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually someone who represents you. So make it more
Yeah.
vocal in terms of design and more, something which incites a thought process in someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, basically something that can actually inspire.
Yeah,
So because,
exactly. And I would also say that you won't always be able to stand in front of your portfolio and talk through each thing. So imagine someone just finding it. Are they able to really see what's going on and how it, became what it is?
so I guess that answers Taiwo's, and now I'll move to Ornella. Now he wants to know that how can she be working on various design fields, interior, product, graphic, as a freelancer, creating a line and making it work in order to open a design house in future, because she wants to have a design agency of her own, and
Mm-hmm.
she wants to be a little multifaceted in terms of graphic, product, and interior as well. She wants to know that how can she have the all-round experience.
I think it's a simple response, but it does take time to get over learning things. You just have to do it. I mean, I never went to school for motion graphics or animating, but yet here recently I've gotten a lot of projects with After Effects, and I'm having to learn how to animate the things that I'm pitching. And it's like that's a kind of a dream client and a project, because I'm able to learn while creating something and I'm getting paid for it, which is really good. And then your result is you now have something that you can say, well, yeah, I can animate now and I can do this with After Effects. That takes time. And, to one day own your own agency, you have to plan there. You just build your clientele, get more freelance work, get more agency experience. That will come with time. And then you'll probably wake up one day and say, well, I think I'm ready to go full time. And then that's when you know and you have the information and the skills to make that transition. I wouldn't just try to jump into it, but that's my opinion. I would just try to gain as much experience as you can, work with as many clients as you can to understand it, and then make the leap.
So I guess so that actually it's a very descriptive answer, Tyler. That's it's simple to understand, but actually very hard to implement.
It is. It is. It
It does
takes
look like that.
time. Well, it
Yeah.
takes time. I mean, I've been doing this for about 7 years. You know, like it flies by. I mean, I still feel like some days, oh, I just graduated, but no, I didn't. I graduated in 2014. You know, and that's just how it goes. But what I've been doing was every single day I'm trying to create something. I'm trying to make something, and I find that very enjoyable. And because I find it very enjoyable, I'm able to learn and get better at what I'm doing without understanding the time that's going into it. That's the best thing I can tell you. You have to trick your mind, because if I sit here and say, "Well, I've been doing this for 7 years," it gets a bit overwhelming. You know, I have places that I want to go in my career future, but I have to think about a little bit more on what I'm doing today and have an idea where you want to go, but think about today, think about learning today, and that will get you somewhere down the road.
So basically, it's just not about being on a destination. It's about loving your journey as well. You need to love the journey
Yeah.
to the end course. So we'll just quickly move on to the
Hmm.
next question by Liz. So once again, two questions. I'll club them in one. So the most scary question a designer can actually face: what do you do if you're creatively stuck? And how do you
Oh,
define your personal brand versus professional brand? So I can work with a personal brand that Tyler is a amazing human being. I can talk to him all for all lengths of person. That I know. That's I know. That's how I know him as a person. And that's on a
hmm
professional front, he can actually answer better.
yeah. Um, so the question though was, how do you get over that mental block, or that when you're stuck? You know, I suffer from that a lot. So I think what you have to understand is that everyone goes through it. Don't single yourself out. There was a point where I used to think that, you know, oh, I'm the only one that's stuck in this. I'm not good enough because I don't see anyone else getting stuck. That right there is a shot in the foot, because you have to understand that that's the process. The process is, how do you figure out this puzzle? How do I solve what's in front of me that's stopping me or preventing me from finishing? Some ways, like, get off the computer, you know, go look for inspiration. If you have the time to put the project on hold, put the project on hold, jump on another project, because I understand time crunches, and I understand moments where there's a deadline tomorrow and I don't have anything today. What do? I could sit here and I could get frustrated more, which happens, and I don't get anything from that besides I'm, you know, pulling my hair out. But if I'm able to step away, go for a walk, go clear your head, go look at an inspiration site, go get inspired, just doodle, draw, you're able to kind of shut down the problem in your head and creatively get something else flowing by doing something else. And my only advice is, like, if you could do that successfully, then you'll be able to step back into that project with a clear head. And a lot of times it's just your own self holding your abilities back. You just have to have a clear head when you're in this. You will solve the problem. You will find a solution. There are solutions. It's just, I'm not thinking clearly. So step away, come back, and then you're able to really address it like you should.
So yeah, that's and guys, I will just take the last question from for the session now. There's a question by Ingrid, which she wants to know that what specialty in the designing world would you suggest to focus on, and or rather, how would you suggest to find a specialty? How to start? Basically, she wants to know where to start from, and secondly, she wants to know
Mm-hmm.
that will this be recorded to watch for later in case I lost my connection? So of course, yes, it will be recorded and it will be delivered straight to the inbox as well. And after like a week or so, you will also be able to watch it on YouTube as well. So don't worry, Ingrid. And for the design question, we have the person right here. So tell her where to start from, and or
Yeah.
at least how to find where the starting point is.
I mean, it may sound like one of those tricky responses, but you should try to expose yourself to the design community as much as possible. You should try to engage and be inspired as much as possible. I say that because from being inspired by the things that you're seeing and what other people are producing, you're able to really see what you want to do. You're able to say like, oh, I really love this style. I really love this logo. I really like the things that this designer's making. And by constantly being cognizant of that and aware that this is kind of what you gravitate towards, you're able to say, why do I gravitate towards this? And then you need to examine why you gravitate towards that, because what that's going to help you with, that's going to give you the answers to that question, which is, I like illustrating because I like multiple colors. I like the creative style that you could do. I like the scalability. I like that you can go in endless directions. So that you have to think about that. You have to be inspired. So I would say for a creative path for anyone who is just a little confused on where to start, you need to just be inspired. You can literally do exactly what you want to do in this world. That's the funny part. I mean, I'm drawing and designing for a living. It's possible. You know, I grew up just sketching and making little skateboard stencils. You can make that a full-time job. It's just you have to be inspired, and if you can genuinely show that to the world that you love, someone's going to get that energy and somebody's going to pay you to do that. So I would just pursue it based off of what you enjoy doing. If you want a broad answer, I would say jump into a job that you're not familiar with. My first job out of college was with a design agency that specialized in digital media and website design. One of the things that I was the worst at in school was website design. So the first thing that I did was find a job in website design so that I would get forced to learn how to do it. So that's another way of looking at it.
So on the same comment, actually, I got a really good question over here. So do you mind if we take one last question?
Okay.
Will that be okay, Ty? Because this question is something which really caught my eye. So this question by Rahul, he wants to know how do you refuse an offer? Pay is good, the client is good, but the project is very time consuming and not good for a portfolio. How to prioritize it?
That's a good one. I am a stickler with projects that could take up a lot of my time. It could also pay me a good bit of money, but I'm not able to have it in my portfolio. That portfolio is number one for me always. That portfolio is my brand, my name. I want to make everything that I do on that portfolio. So that's a push and pull. You have many different factors there. You have to think about, well, how bad do you need that money? If you need that money, you've got to flip that switch. This is a job. You are hired to do something. Flip the switch. If you need to pay rent, you need to pay to eat, you need to pay for the tools, and I mean a laptop. You have to have these things. So take those jobs if you are at the point where you need it. Take them, because that's something you need to do. But if you're at a level or a position where you don't necessarily need that money and you can refuse it to get a design job where you can creatively, explore what you want, you could simply just be too busy. That's how I turn it down. I mean, if I'm too busy, that's my answer always. It's like, well, I got too much going on right now, and see if the project comes back around later in the day.
So yeah, I guess that's for the session right now, Tyler. Tyler, thank you so much once again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and guys, you will receive the copy of this video in your inbox very shortly, and maybe in a few minutes you will receive the recording of this. And guys, I'm sharing the link of Tyler's Instagram profile as well, so you can go and follow him, and maybe drop him a few questions. And being the lovely person he is, he will actually answer the question. I know him. So yeah, so he's a guy to call.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Check out my work on Instagram and and just ask me any questions. If I wasn't able to get to you, you could just ask through Instagram typo11, and I can help you there.
Yeah. So guys, I guess that was that, and now you know where to go to. So you can always come back to Designhill right now for webinars as such, and otherwise we have Tyler all the time. So Tyler, thank you so much. Thank you once again, and I guess I'll see you very soon once again. Maybe
absolutely.
After I will
absolutely.
See you.
Thanks again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye. Take care.
All right. Bye.